Movies. Thriller movies. There has been a lack of good movies that have came out recently, and you can't put all of your hopes on Hollywood on making a good crime thriller movie without it having lots of cliches with the same plotline they seem to choose to play it safe, while hoping that the popular actors can save it for them. Well, seeing that they can't itch that thriller movie scratch of mine, I went to look for something in the foreign movies section, which usually doesn't disappoint. And a movie by the name of The Guilty, or as the Danish people like to say, Den Skyldige. I had heard about the movie couple of years ago, but for some reason didn't give it a try. So I thought, why not give it a chance now? Way better than watching some shitty, overdone Hollywood movie. And oh boy, was this movie something special. Watched it, loved it, thought of making a video about it. I wouldn't if it was another one of those thriller movies that was somewhat good. Oh, before I get into all of that, there will be spoilers for the movie because this video is about the movie. So I don't know, go watch the movie, I guess. The movie starts with a call ringing, which is answered by our main character, Asger Holm, who is working in the emergency services. And he kind of looks like John Travolta, which was the primary reason why this movie caught my eye. After a brief silence with sobbing noises, the caller asks for help. He doesn't say his name, but it shows up in the database. Asger asks Nikolai Jensen for his current address as it cannot be tracked by him. Nikolai doesn't say anything, but Asger tries to look for an answer by asking him if he is in his registered home address. He denies that and starts to panic. At best, Asger can track his nearest cell tower location. Nikolai starts to get even more anxious, which makes it clear to Asger that he might be on drugs. Well, I'm not a drug connoisseur, but what the fuck is speed? Oh, so when I googled it, amphetamine came up. When Nikolai gets confronted to using drugs, he starts to lose it. To which Asger replies. And then Nikolai does what an average drug addict does. Hang up the call rather than getting help. Well, there were certain things that we learned from this brief call. Their name and address is registered, which can be seen in the database. The nearest cell tower location can be tracked if the call stays on the line for a certain duration of time. The only way the caller can be helped if they can tell their current location. Before the first call can even end, there is another ring. This one is on his personal cell. She doesn't say her name until he asks her. Tanya Brix. She's a journalist working for Berlingske. She called to ask questions about a case that is going to happen tomorrow. Which gets Asger agitated as he denies to make any comment about it. He gets reminded by the supervisor to not take any personal call while working, which Asger answers by jokingly saying, the supervisor lady wasn't a big fan of that joke. On the other note, we get a bit of backstory about our protagonist, some sort of case about which he is pretty personal and doesn't want to talk about it. This caller says his name right away.
Ja, hallo. Du taler med Søren Armstrong Ries. Jeg er lige blevet overfaldet og bestjålet.
Soren Amstrup Rees got mugged while he was in his car.
Nej, jeg sidder i min bil. I skal skynde jer over.
The nearest cell tower location to him appears to be in a place called Westerbro. But as usual, Asger asks for more of an exact location.
Ved jeg ikke, altså. Kan du ikke se det på din computer, eller hvad?
Nej, jeg kan se den nærmest mobil.
And the caller, rightfully, doesn't want to get out of his car to check as he was just mugged.
Men jeg sidder jo og siger til dig, at jeg lige er blevet overfaldet og bestjålet. Jeg kan sgu da ikke derud.
Asger asks him to describe the whole situation.
Hvad er der sket?
Ja, en kvinde trak en kniv og tog min punkt og min computer, og jeg har en masse arbejdsdokumenter i den, jeg skal bruge.
Not while he was outside. No. He somehow got robbed while he was inside his car.
Men hvordan kommer hun ind i din bil?
Ja, hun hoppede bare ind.
Hoppede bare ind.
Well, Asger, with his street knowledge, comes to the conclusion that he was robbed by a prostitute.
Ja, hvor var det?
Kan du se et værtshus, der hedder Ohhh Café?
Ja.
Ja. Søren, du er på Skelbækgade.
Asger holds the line to call dispatch to send help while looking at his watch, most probably wondering when his shift will be over. His colleague, Bo, answers the call,
Overfald på...
Det er fandme løgn, mand. Det er Bo.
who is working in the dispatch duty too.
Det må du sgu nok spørge om, mand. Ledelsesturnus, altså. Vi sidder hele ugen.
Unsurprisingly, both of them hate working on the phone
Kraftedme et lortopgave, det er telefonpis, mand. Hvad siger du?
Synes du?
and make fun of people who do it as their main job.
Frivilligt.
Du er heldigvis tilbage på gaden efter i morgen. Det er jo dejligt.
They talk about how they can't wait to get back to the streets. It's pretty common that the people who work in action look down on the others who don't and see them as the nerd who does the computer work and answers calls. They get to the actual job part after having a friendly talk and send help to Soren. And for some reason, Asger tells him to not go ASAP but wait a bit to add more misery to his life.
Jeg sætter lige en vogn dernede, så snart jeg kan.
Lad dem dog lige sidde dernede lidt, ikke? Jeg kan stege lidt over det, synes jeg.
Ja, helt klart.
While he fangirls over Bo, who confiscated 90 kilos of some drugs, the excitement from his voice made it pretty clear that he liked that part of the job way more than this.
Vi gik lige i flæske på dem.
Det kigger mok.
Ja, fuldstændig.
He asks about someone named Rashid.
Ja. Hvorfor skulle du ikke være det?
Nå.
Det er godt, Asger. Hej så længe.
Doesn't clarify much about him, but that is the only piece of backstory we get for now. This call is a bit different.
Det er alarmcentralen. Det er alarmcentralen. Hallo?
At first, it seemed like the caller dialed up the wrong number. Most likely, she wanted to call her child.
Hej skat. Du skal ikke være bange.
But as he was about to hang up,
Okay, ved du hvad? Jeg lægger på nu. Hej.
Jeg er bare ude og køre lidt, ikke? Jeg er ude at køre.
he heard a voice of a man.
Hvem er du sammen med?
After putting two and two together, the situation started to feel like a kidnapping.
Jamen, ved personen, du er sammen med, at du har ringet 112?
Nej.
Okay. Hvem tror du har ringet til?
Hvem er skat?
Er det dit barn?
And the kidnapper was letting her talk to her child. Eben Ostergaard, the caller, knows the kidnapper, who might be armed too.
Er det en, du kender? Har han et våben? Iben, personen, du er sammen med, har han et våben?
Det ved jeg ikke.
Jamen, det lyder som om, du sidder i en bil. Kan det passe?
Ja.
Du er blevet bortført?
Ja.
Okay.
After Asger acquires her general whereabouts,
Jeg kan se, du er nord for København. Det er godt, Iben. Iben, kører I på en motorvej?
Ja.
Okay, kører sydpå mod København?
Nej.
Så kører nordpå?
he asks her to pretend to console her child while he calls the dispatch.
Læg på, du skal blive på linjen. Ikke? Lad som om, du trøster dit barn, okay? Kom så, Iben.
Lad mig lige tænke.
Finder vi noget?
The dispatch asks for the license plate number.
Ja, har du et registreringsnummer?
Nej, men jeg har kvinden på linjen, så hun kan signalere, når hun ser.
Den er modtaget.
But the only information Asker was able to obtain was that it's a white van.
Iben, vent lidt, hæld lidt på. Nu nævner jeg nogle farver, som bilen kunne have, og lige snart det rammer rigtigt, så siger du, det er fint, okay? Rød, blå, sort, hvid. Okay, hvid. Er det en personbil?
Lavvogn. Så godt, skat. Men,
Kan du ikke sætte mig sammen med din vogn?
Jo, det kan jeg godt, men hvad har du tænkt dig?
Vil du ikke bare være sød og gøre det? Hallo?
Ja, værsgo.
Tak.
A patrol car that was on the lookout gets a match.
Jo, for fanden. Der kører en varebil længere frem.
Hvad farve?
Det er fandme svært at sige. Det er billeder nu.
Kør på siden af ham.
Fuck.
Hvad?
Han blinker ind. Han er ved at køre motorvejen. Han må se dig. Det må være ham, ikke?
Kør op på siden af ham.
Op på siden af ham. Men det når vi kraftigt, men ikke han drejer nu. Hvad skal vi?
Kør efter.
But unfortunately, there wasn't any woman in that van.
Hvad sker der?
Forkert bil. Ikke nogen kvinde.
He calls the dispatch again, who demand for the license plate number.
Det er ikke nok at gå efter. Og jeg har 6 biler i hele Nordsjælland.
Ja, vi skal bruge et registreringsnummer. Jeg ved det.
Ja, præcis.
As Eben doesn't have a car of her own, Asker had the only option to call in her home phone number. For the first time, you can see Asker really care about saving someone through this emergency service job, as he gets frustrated when the dispatch aren't able to do the job that they are getting paid for. Asker calls on the home number.
Nej, det her det er ikke mor. Det er Asger Holm fra politiet.
Which is answered by Eben's daughter. Turns out, the father might be the kidnapper, as they both left together.
Det gik.
Hvem gik?
Mor og far.
And he owns a white van too.
Okay. Mathilde, har din far en hvid varevogn?
Han bor ikke mere.
The signs are there. They used to be married, but he doesn't live with them anymore.
Er han gift med din mor?
Ikke mere.
Matilda recalls his phone number, which helps Asker to know the full name and license plate of her father's van.
Okay. Har du et telefonnummer?
508 502 04.
Så der er Michael Berg. Registreringsnummer. Perfekt.
She breaks down after that, saying that her father had a fight with her mother.
Hver gang jeg var ramt af mor. Hvor ked af det.
The fight centered around the younger kid, Oliver.
Jeg tror, jeg skal have Oliver.
And after that, he left with Eben and a knife.
Og så skal mor, så tog jeg kniven. Så gik det.
Matilda is afraid that he might kill her mother.
Han slår mor ihjel.
But Asker promises to her that he wouldn't let him do that.
Okay. Ja, det lover jeg.
Matilda is restless, so Asker tells her to stay with her brother until he sends someone to look after them.
Til din bror. Vær lidt sammen med ham.
Far sagde jeg ikke måtte.
Ja, det er lige meget, hvad din far sagde. Bare gå ind til ham lige så stille du kan, og så er du inde hos ham, indtil politiet kommer. Vil du ikke gøre det?
Okay, jeg går ind til ham nu.
Det er godt.
Farvel.
Hej.
Asker calls the dispatch to inform them about the license plate number.
Vagtcentral i Nordsjælland.
Det er Asger 112, så har jeg nummerpladen. Zulu Tango 55803, ZT 55803.
And tell them about Michael Berg, who is armed and is an ex-convict.
Michael Berg, der har en.
Michael Berg. Den er modtaget.
Og han har en kniv med,
Ja, det ser jeg så.
og han har voldsdom på sig, så vi kender ham.
Ja, jeg må få pladen ud.
He gets into an argument with the dispatch lady.
Prøv at høre, hvad jeg siger. Det jeg tænkte på, det var, om man ikke
Nej,
skulle
nu skal
sende
jeg
nogen...
fortælle dig noget her. Nu skal du vente på, at hun ringer tilbage. Det er dit job, du passer telefonen, og så passer jeg mit, okay?
Even though he is frustrated towards the lackluster work done by the dispatch, he apologizes to his colleague.
Torben.
Ja.
Ja, jeg vil gerne undskylde for min opførsel. Ikke bare i dag, men i det hele taget. Jeg ved godt, det har været helt... Ja, ved. Kan du tage imod min undskyldning? Er du klar? Tak.
And goes from hating the desk job to working past his shift.
Hvorfor? Altså, vi er fri om et kvarter. Ja.
Asger calls Bo to ask him to do a favor for him.
Du, men jeg er lige på en sag her. Jeg skulle høre, om du kunne gøre mig en tjeneste.
Ja, ja.
He asks him to go and search Michael Berg's house.
Der bor en Michael Berg. Han er tidligere dømt, og han har kidnappet sin ekskone.
He is basically saying to break in Michael's house,
Han bor alene, så det ved jeg ikke, men ellers må I bare bryde ind.
Jeg hørte ikke, hvad du sagde.
which Bo denies to do, and brings up that is this related to tomorrow's case about him.
Er det her noget med i morgen?
Asger replies by saying,
Jeg har det fint. Jeg prøver bare at gøre mit job. Jeg prøver bare...
Bo talks about a psychologist who has been assigned to Asger. We get another bit of backstory.
Så hilser du lige Patricia mange gange for mig.
Patricia, the life partner of Asger, has moved out, but he hasn't told Bo about it.
Jeg er flyttet.
He's starting to get restless. He tries to call Eben again, but all he gets is the voicemail.
Ej, Iben, du slår over, jeg kan desværre ikke tage telefonen lige nu, men lad nu være. Læg en besked, eller ring igen senere, eller send en sms. Hej, hej.
He calls the dispatch after that to see if there's any update on their part,
Værkscentralen Nordsjælland?
Det er Asger fra 112 Øst. Har I fundet den her varevogn?
Nej, ikke nu. Men havde du
but they haven't got anything. And then a call comes in.
Ja.
Hvad er der gutter nu? Der er fucking dammeren, der er smadret med det. Vi skal bruge politiet lige nu.
The caller couldn't give his address,
Ja, og har du en adresse?
Er du fucking dum eller hvad?
Nej, det er jeg ikke. Jeg kan ikke rigtig gøre noget, hvis du ikke giver mig.
and hangs up the call after saying they will handle it themselves.
Fuck det her, mand. Vi klarer den bare selv.
Nu skal du høre her. Du skal lade politiet klare.
Fuck dig.
Hvad for noget?
At first glance, it seems like a call made by some dude who did something in a bar, but his attitude towards the police means there is a certain alienation between the general public and the police, which isn't that alarming, as the half-ass work done by the dispatch means that the public aren't going to place all their hopes on the law department. Asger calls the phone number registered to Michael Berg.
Hallo, er det Michael?
He tries to play smooth to keep him busy so he can track his location.
Hvem er det?
Der du taler med Asger Holm fra Københavns Politi. Du må undskylde, jeg ringer så sent, men...
He attempts to get Michael to go to Eben's house to look after their stranded children.
Men jeg kunne ikke få dig til at køre over til Mathilde og Oliver, vel?
Det kan jeg ikke.
When Asger fails to do that, he tries a different method.
Michael, jeg ved, du er sammen med Iben. Hvor er du på vej hen?
I skal ikke blande jer.
Hvad skal vi ikke blande os i? Var det venstre, du sad?
But Michael just hangs up the call.
Vil du gerne ind og sidde igen?
After another failed attempt to contact Michael,
Det er Michael. Læg en besked.
he calls his partner, Rashid, and asks him to go to Michael's house.
Okay, du skal køre ud på en adresse på Amager for mig. Jeg forklarer dig om det, når du kommer ud.
Rashid is drunk, which makes Asger angry because he is the witness in tomorrow's case.
Du skal vidne for mig i morgen.
Jeg ved det.
Du møder ikke op i retten med tømmermænd, forstår du det?
Nej, selvfølgelig gør jeg ikke det.
Their statement, which is going to be used tomorrow, is scripted and based on lies. So, it's just like the Oscars. Rashid agrees to go to the address where Michael lives.
Okay, så kom med adressen.
Strandløsvej 12 på Amager. Bor en Michael Berg. Strandløsvej 12, kan du huske det?
Strandløsvej 12.
Dispatch lady comes by again, not to school him this time, but to tell him that
Mathilde?
Hej.
Hej.
the police officers who are supposed to look after her have arrived there.
Men det er bare politiet. Bare gå hen og åbne døren for den.
One of the officers notices that there is blood on Matilda and her clothes.
Mathilde, hvad er det der? Har du slået dig, Mathilde?
Det er ikke mit.
Not sure if it's her or someone else's.
Jeg ved det ikke, men hun har blod på hænderne og på trøjen.
Asger tells them to go check on Oliver.
Gå lige ind til Oliver.
Hvem?
Og hendes lillebror Oliver. Gå ind til ham.
Hey, her må det være.
Kan du finde ham? Hallo, team, er du der?
They find Oliver dead.
Det er dødt, barnet.
Vent nu lidt. Hvordan ved du, han er død?
Ja, det kan jeg se.
He has been cut open by a knife.
Team, tjek, om man trækker vejret.
Han er død, siger jeg. Han har skåret ham op. Han er helt åben.
Asger calls Michael to confront him about what he did to Oliver.
Du skal ikke ringe til mig.
Hvad har du gjort med Oliver?
Michael was denying everything until Asger tells him that Matilda knows what he did.
Du skal ikke ringe igen.
Mathilde har også set, hvad du har gjort. Hun har set, hvad du har gjort ved Oliver.
Asger demands him to stop all of this.
Michael, det her, det stopper. Det stopper lige her. Lige nu. Stands vognen, fortæl mig, hvor jeg er, så sender jeg en bil.
But Michael doesn't or can't go back to prison again.
Du kommer ind og sidder.
Det går ikke.
Det går ikke. Hvad for jeg skal sige, Michael? At det er synd for dig? Hva? At du er et offer? Du er sgu ikke noget offer, Michael. Oliver, han er et offer. Mathilde, hun er et offer. Iben er et offer. Du er ikke noget offer. Du skulle have en fucking kugle på panden. Kan du fatte det?
Rashid calls again as he has reached the address that Asger gave him.
Rashid?
Det er Asger. Jeg holder på Strandløsvej.
Asger asks him to break in the house.
Du skal bryde ind.
Hvad skal jeg?
Gør nu bare, hvad du om.
But unlike Bo, Rashid does that because he trusts him more.
Ham, der bor her, hedder Michael Berg. Han har slået sin søn ihjel. Han har skåret ham op. Og nu har han kidnappet ekskone. Jeg ved ikke, hvad han har tænkt sig at gøre med hende. De er på vej nordpå. Vi skal prøve at finde ud af, hvor de var hen.
They get into an argument and then Asger hangs up the call.
Det kan jeg ikke, Asger. Er du klar over meget?
Gør nu bare, hvad jeg siger.
Det vil tage mig flere timer, mand. Er du klar over, hvor mange breve der er? Alle de her papirer. Men hvor du have, jeg skal stå og rode med alle de her papirer, mens han er i gang med at slå hende pigen ihjel?
Hvad foreslår du, vi gør?
Jeg foreslår ikke en skid andet, end jeg siger, at vi har tiden imod os. Okay?
Det ved jeg godt. Det er også derfor, du bare skal se at komme i gang. Er det modtaget?
Ja, det er modtaget.
Asger tries to call Iben again. This time, she picks it up.
Iben, nu skal du høre godt efter.
Asger sounds determined as he has got a plan. He asks her to put on her seatbelt and pull the handbrake.
Michael sagde på. Godt. Tag din sele på. Hold din sele på. Iben.
Ja.
Godt. Træk i håndbremsen. Alt du kan. Træk i håndbremsen.
The call ends abruptly. He tries to call again but gets the voicemail.
Hej, du har ringet til mig, Iben. Du skal over, det desværre ikke.
An incoming call. Another unidentified caller. As he doesn't have time for this, he cuts the call.
Hvad? Jeg har ikke tid lige nu.
She calls again. This is just hilarious.
Hej, jeg har crashet min cykel, og jeg har slået mit knæ.
Prøv at høre, jeg er nødt til at bede dig om at ringe tilbage senere.
Er det dig igen?
Prøv at høre, hver gang du ringer 112, så får du fat i den samme operatør, og jeg kan ikke tale lige nu.
Hvad fuck snakker du om? Send en ambulance.
Til dit dårlige knæ.
Ja.
Ved du hvad, tag en taxa hjem, og så lad være at cykle, når du er beruset.
Another ring. This time, it's Iben. She did what Asger asked her to do, but in the process, she got stuck.
Jeg gjorde, som du sagde. Det virkede ikke. Jeg kan ikke komme ud.
She keeps repeating that she doesn't want to be locked up.
Jeg vil ikke være på hende.
Nej, men ved du, hvor I er på vej hen?
Jeg vil ikke være på hende.
Nej, Iben, vi skal nok finde ud af den varevogn.
Jeg vil ikke være på hende.
Asger tries to calm her and holds the line so he can send help to her.
Ja, Iben, jeg stiller lige om.
Nej, ikke igen.
Rolig, Iben, det gør jeg, fordi det bliver nødt til, hvis jeg skal hjælpe dig. Hold linjen, lad være at lægge på, jeg er tilbage lige om lidt.
He dials the wrong number and rather than calling dispatch, he calls Bo,
Asger.
Ja,
who gets angry as he said Asger to go home after his shift was over.
Altså, sagde jeg ikke, at du skulle tage hjem? Hvad?
jo, det kan jeg ikke.
Hvad fanden er det så?
He dials the right number this time
Hvad er centralen i Nordsjælland?
Det er Asger 112 Øst.
and informs them about the nearest cell tower location.
Ja, massen har samlet op i nærheden af...
But as usual, they want a precise location.
Modtaget. Jeg sender min vogn den vej, men jeg skal altså bruge en nærmere position.
So Asger gets back to the call with Iben.
Iben?
She is on the verge of having a breakdown.
Iben? Så er jeg tilbage. Nej, det gør jeg ikke. Prøv at høre, det vi skal gøre nu...
Jeg vil bare hjælpe Mathilde og Oliver.
Ja,
But Asger tries to console her
det vi skal gøre nu, ikke?
Hvorfor det er, han gør det her?
and advises her to find a weapon so she can defend herself.
Du er nødt til at finde noget at forsvare dig med.
She tries to find something in that dark and congested van
Følg dig frem.
and gets hold of a brick.
Det er en tur.
Mursten, det er godt. Kan du tage en af dem? Iben, tag en af dem.
Which Asger tells her to use if Michael comes by.
Hvis han standser, Så rejser du dig op, og lige så snart han åbner døren, så slår du ham alt, hvad du kan.
She gets nervous in that claustrophobic situation while saying she can't do that.
Så tager du en kniv og sikrer den. Så fortæller du mig, hvor rolig Iben, så fortæller du mig, hvor jeg er hen, og så finder jeg en vogn. Jo, du kan Iben.
Asger does his best to calm her.
Sådan her. Iben, dør ikke. Træk vejret stille og roligt sammen med mig, kom.
Seeing that breathing isn't helping, he tries a different method, which surprisingly work wonders.
Iben, hvad er din livret?
She likes pork sausage, which Asger doesn't.
Med klisterpølse.
Disterpølse. Kan du godt lide det?
Ja, kan du ikke?
And then she says this.
Er du muslim?
Nej, det er ikke derfor.
He tries a different question. She talks about a place called Blue Planet
Vi kan godt lide den blå planet.
and describes on why she likes the underwater.
Jeg plejer at gå bag ved Tilde med Oliver i barnevognen, og så bare se og mærke.
Mærk hvad?
Det virker så rart.
Hvad er det, der virker rart?
Under vandet. Sådan stille. Ingen forstyrrelser. Kun vandet, der langsomt bevæger sig omkring en. Helt stille. Bare en stor blå stillhed.
They share a heartwarming moment.
Jeg ved ikke, hvad det er, du hedder.
Jeg hedder Asger.
Jeg kan godt lide dig, Asger.
Jeg kan også godt lide dig, Iben.
It changes the overall atmosphere of the movie. But as they were sharing that moment, they hear a car stopping. Asger tries to build up courage in Iben so she can defend herself.
Lige så snart han åbner døren, så slår du ham alt, hvad du kan. Ikke også? Han fortjener det.
Han fortæller.
And then, in that moment, Iben says something peculiar.
Han har det fint.
Men,
Han har det bedre nu. Han skriger ikke mere.
hvad snakker du om?
Slangerne.
Slangerne? Hvad for nogle slanger?
Han havde så ondt jo. I hans mave. Han skreg og skreg, fordi han havde slanger i maven. Jeg tog dem jo bare ud.
Var det dig?
Han har det meget bedre nu. Han skriger ikke mere. Han har det fint, ikke? Asger?
Michael comes close and Iben hits him. And the call cuts by itself. Asger's personal phone rings again. It's Rashid.
Hallo? Kan du høre mig?
Ja.
We get the reason on why Michael doesn't want to go back to prison.
Hans voldsdom. Det er der fucking ikke noget at sige til. Asger?
Ja.
Så jeg skal bare komme til.
Rashid talks about a psychiatric center in Elsinore where Iben was admitted. It was the same place where Michael was heading to.
Må jeg se hende?
Hvad siger du?
Hun vil ikke være buret inde.
Asger calls Michael, who confirms that.
Det her det er Asger fra politiet, vi talte sammen tidligere. Er du ved Psykiatrisk Center Nordsjælland i Helsingør?
Ja.
And Iben is nowhere to be found. Even in this moment, Michael doesn't want the police to get involved. But Asger assures him, as now he knows what really happened,
Det ved jeg godt. Jeg ved det godt.
and asks him why he didn't let the police help him. Michael confirms my previous hypothesis that there is a lack of concern shown by all the official departments who are supposed to look after people.
Jeg har prøvet. Læger, advokater, kommunen. Ingen af dem hjælper.
Asger tells Michael that he is trying to help.
Fuck dig! Fuck jer alle sammen! Min dreng er død!
Michael felt helpless in that situation.
Oliver, jeg måtte klare det selv. Jeg vil bare lukke den dør og ordne det hele.
He couldn't help his now dead child or his ex-wife. She had no idea of what she had done to her child. In her eyes, all she was trying to do was to help Oliver.
Hun ved ikke engang selv, hvad det er, hun har gjort. Hun tror, hun hjalp Oliver. Jeg kunne ikke sige det til hende.
Michael ends the call. Asger tries to call Iben, but gets no response.
Hej, du har ringet til Østergaard, jeg kan desværre ikke tage telefonen lige nu, men lad nu være. Læg en besked, eller ring igen senere, eller send en sms. Hej hej.
And in this moment, he lets loose of all those pent-up frustration. His phone rings again.
Hej, Rashid.
Hey,
Asghar tells him to go home.
Bare tag hjem.
ligesom opkald
Bare tag
for
hjem.
Men hvad skulle han med hende
Bare
deroppe?
tag hjem. Bare tag hjem, Rashid.
Men
And asks him not to lie in the court tomorrow just for the sake of helping him.
Du skal ikke lyve i morgen, hvis du ikke har lyst.
hvad mener du?
Jeg siger i retten i morgen. Du skal ikke lyve for min skyld. Forstår du?
Jeg forstår, at vi holder os til historien. Det er det, vi har aftalt.
Turns out, Asghar sought someone.
Det er mig, der er anklaget. Det er mig, der skød. Du er bare en fist.
Jeg skal ikke bare lave op på mit udsagn. Vel?
And even Rashid doesn't know about Patricia leaving him.
Hjem til Patricia, så får du noget søvn. Okay?
Asger,
There is another caller asking for Asghar.
jeg har fået et indkommende fra en, der gerne vil tale med dig. Hun siger, at I har talt sammen før. Hun hedder Iben. Siger du noget?
Ja.
She has come to the realization that she might have killed Oliver.
Slå Oliver ihjel, har jeg.
She asks Asghar about it.
Du må ikke lyve.
As he tries to deflect that question in order to help her,
Kan du ikke bare fortælle mig, hvor du er henne?
Du må ikke lyve.
she just notices that she had blood in her hands all this time.
Jeg har blod på hænderne. Jeg vidste ikke, men nu ser jeg, at jeg har blod på hænderne.
Asghar hears noises of cars nearby,
Det lyder som om, der er biler tæt på dig, er det ikke?
trying his best to pin down her location.
Iben, er der biler tæt på dig?
She is on a bridge trying to commit suicide.
Iben, står du på en bro?
Hopper nu.
Nej. Du kan ikke nok lade være med det. Tag det stille og roligt. Park Central Nordsjælland nu. Iben står på motorvejsbroen, afkørsel 19 lige ved hospitalet. Så må vi springe.
Slanger ned.
He tries to convince her, saying that it was just an accident, and all of them were just trying to help her.
Jeg vil bare gerne hjælpe dig. Ikke? Jeg prøver at hjælpe dig. Vi vil gerne alle sammen bare hjælpe dig. Iben, tal med mig.
As a last straw measure, he admits to killing a person.
Jeg har dræbt en mand. Hører du? Jeg har dræbt en mand.
Someone by the name of Joseph.
Han hed Josef. Ung fyr. Dreng næsten. 19 år.
He did that in the hopes that he can claim that as self-defense,
Fordi jeg kunne. Jeg havde sagt til alle, det var selvforsvar. Det var det.
because he knew that even if he did that, he can get away with it. And he manages to convince her that all she did was an accident, unlike him,
Nej. Det var en ulykke.
and reminds her of her daughter, who is still waiting for her.
Du har en datter. Hun elsker dig. Og så meget gerne vil se sin mor. Der er ikke.
And that she still have people who love and care for her.
Hun elsker dig. Iben. Det gør Michael også. Du har stadig mennesker, som elsker dig. I dit liv.
The police have reached her location,
De kommer nu.
but the call ends abruptly.
Iben!
He tries to call her again, but it doesn't connect.
Hej, du har ringet til mig. Hej, du har ringet til mig, Iben. Hej, du har ringet til mig, Iben. Østergaard, jeg kan desværre ikke tage telefonen lige nu, men...
Asghar calls the dispatch. Rather than getting a sad news, they say that they have Iben safe with them.
Vi har hende. Hun kom ned.
I har hende.
Ja, vi har hende. Godt arbejde, Asger.
You can clearly see the relief in him, knowing that he was able to keep his promise to a child of seeing her mother again. He was able to save a life of a person while doing a job which he didn't like for most of the time. what a movie. And there is a reason as to why I didn't add any funny haha memes in between the scenes, because it would have ruined the overall pacing of the movie. As I said in the beginning, it's not like other thriller movies. The whole movie takes place in a room. There aren't many cuts between scenes. I had to edit some parts, otherwise this video would have been an hour long. There is a lack of background music too, as most of the other thriller movies thrive on that part. They use those type of tracks to amplify the tension which these type of movies tend to create. It's on par with the laugh tracks in comedy shows and jump scare noises in horror movies. Which are used to tell the dumb audience that they have to laugh or get scared at those moments. But somehow, the lack of any background music makes this movie even better at creating atmosphere. Even though I don't like the sentences that movie critics use while describing a movie, which is using big fancy words that half of the people can't even understand, but I have to agree that this movie will keep you on your toes. Another part that is pretty interesting is that this movie didn't need that many on-screen actors. Most of the time, it's just us seeing the face of Asghar. This is a great tool for someone who doesn't have that much of a budget. Gotta appreciate the director for thinking of making this movie in that way. Because you might not like the movie, but you have to appreciate the efforts of someone who is trying to do something else, as he takes all the conventional thinking while making a thriller movie, which is using suspense building music,
This is a safe place.
showing lots of grisly scenes, and having lots of characters to keep things busy, which just makes things messy because now you have to remember the names of those characters, which becomes a mundane chore rather than having an entertaining piece of time. And most of the time, it's pretty easy to guess who has done it, because out of all those characters, the one with a reasonable amount of screen time is the one who is the culprit, as they do or show something that gives them away. And this is the part where this movie shines. We don't see any of the character on screen, so we can't judge them unless they say it themselves. For example, if we would have seen Eben with bloody hands right at the start, we would know that something else is going on. This movie does everything that I was waiting for a thriller movie to do. Because, believe me, I have seen lots of horror and thriller movies, and it is pretty rare nowadays that I get that feeling of fulfillment after watching such movies. But rather than that, I get frustrated from all those poorly written characters thrown in a plot that doesn't make sense. But this movie gave me that feeling I had when I first saw some really good thriller movies. And that too in a short 80 minutes of runtime. While there are movies and series which try to stretch it way past what it has to offer, and that only decreases its effectiveness. Oh well, it was nice while it lasted, as there is a Hollywood remake which is supposed to come out this year. It's funny how the anti-Hollywood-esque thriller movie is getting a Hollywood remake. I'm pretty sure this will not work, even though it has got a good cast. And I think that is what will be the downfall of it. Even though the director has a good catalog of movies, but having all those big names in a movie which revolves around a single character is a bad idea, even if they are in an off-screen role, which makes it even more stupider of starring those actors. I hope it does well, because I'm a fan of Jake Gyllenhaal, even though this whole situation looks like a recipe for a disaster. But hey, the director of the original movie has agreed to all of this, because he will be directing a movie which will star Jake Gyllenhaal. So I guess they have some sort of deal worked out for themselves. Well, that doesn't concern me, because that will not ruin the original movie. But more people will come to see the original one after seeing the dumpster fire of a movie that the remake is going to be. Quote me on that. Well, ta-ta, bitches.